It all starts in the deadly jungle where our protagonist is staring death right in the face as a terrifying monster prepares to tear him apart. But just as the beast lunges, an unbelievable thing happens. A wild wolf and a swarm of slimes burst onto the scene, instantly overwhelming the monster and leaving absolutely nothing behind except a mysterious, glowing crystal, one that looks as if several demons are trapped inside it. Right after that, the scene shifts to the Adventurers Guild in the city of Pastan, where a few men are laughing at someone for claiming he saw slimes spitting fire, but the mood changes the moment the same boy from before walks in, and this is when we learn his name is Yuji, the main character of our story. The entire guild falls silent as soon as he arrives, because it is obvious that the adventurers hold him in unusually high regard. A girl there gently hints that it would be understandable if he had failed his mission, but before the moment can settle, the slime resting on Yuji's shoulder suddenly spits out hundreds of dry flowers, leaving her completely stunned, so shocked that she hurries off to call the guild leader. Meanwhile, the men nearby start wondering whether Yuji might actually be some kind of monster tamer. At that very moment, a man named Ajis arrives, the leader of the guild, and he points out that Yuji has brought back an enormous amount of dry flowers, so many that they could last for as long as 2 years. Yuji then tells him that he had run into some incredibly violent monsters, but Ajis does not seem too concerned at first, until a knight rushes in and reports that he has seen a massive number of monsters near the forest, all moving in one direction, and he nervously reveals that there are at least 10,000 of them. In that instant, one of Yuji's slimes communicates with others hidden in the forest and confirms that the monster horde really is heading their way. Hearing that, the guild leader immediately orders all adventurers to defend Pastan because a full-scale invasion is coming straight toward the city. The men begin to panic a little, knowing innocent people and entire families could die if they fail, but Yuji calmly pulls out a strange slime horn and says he has an idea that might let them wipe out all 10,000 monsters. He explains that the horn can reproduce the attack of a dragon, but almost no one believes him because even if Yuji is clearly no ordinary tamer, the number of enemies is simply too overwhelming. Then a man named Gale walks up to him, studies the slime, and tells Ajies to let Yuji try, and because of that, the others finally agree to support him. A few hours later, the adventurers are getting ready for battle, while Yuji uses magic to communicate with his wolf companion, whom we will call Wolf. Soon after, Wolf appears carrying several slimes on his back and informs Yuji that he already knows about the horde and that the monsters will definitely reach them. Yuji then climbs a set of stairs and looks out over the battlefield forming in the distance, while on the other side, the first monsters begin to appear, and after some objects are launched into the sky, the creatures are struck down by archers. At once, crystals begin raining down and start killing large numbers of monsters, but even then, many remain alive, making everyone realize that this is only the beginning of the fight. On the other hand, Yuji stores away the horn with his slime Sura and starts casting a huge number of spells from different elements, building a type of attack that can strike and defend at the same time. Then a girl in the forest named Diurd, who is with one of the slimes, contacts him directly. She tells Yuji there is a very strange person in the forest, and using his detection magic, Yuji notices a magic stone as well, so he asks her to move closer. She hesitates because touching it could kill her, but because Yuji's power is so great, he tells her he will place a barrier over the crystal so she can take it safely. Once he does that, the girl sends the slimes in to grab the crystal without the suspicious man noticing. In the next moment, the slimes leap onto him and manage to tie him up, and then we discover that Yuji can even cast his spells through the slimes because one of them uses his magic and completely disables the crystal. That drives the man into total despair, and with his plan ruined, he ends up drinking the poison he had brought with him in case everything failed. Meanwhile, Gale keeps fighting, but his group starts to get cornered by the monsters, so Yuji asks Wolf to split up the slimes he brought and send them to help, and soon the slimes arrive beside Gale and wipe out several of the enemies. At the same time, Yuji realizes he needs to cast a powerful protective spell, so he tells the guild girl, Lily, to warn everyone to pull back because he is about to use it. He also tells his own companions to retreat to the city, and right after that, all the slimes completely surround the city, and once the final monster inside the perimeter is killed, Yuji succeeds in creating a barrier over the whole place. Everyone stares in amazement, and then Yuji uses a fire ability that explodes outside the barrier, instantly killing thousands of monsters beyond it. The adventurers are left speechless because they have never seen magic that powerful before, but even so, Yuji collapses slightly from exhaustion, having pushed himself too far with that attack. Even worse, several monsters are still alive. Though he is already weak, Yuji knows he has to launch a second strike. Lily, who has returned to his side, desperately begs him not to do it, but Yuji understands that if he stops now, the creatures will overrun them all, so he activates the barrier again and unleashes a second fire attack, causing another huge explosion outside it. And then, from excessive magic use, he falls unconscious unconscious on the spot. A few hours later, Yuji wakes up and is warmly greeted by the slimes, while Lily is relieved and happy to see that he is safe. In another scene, Aegeas heads out with several adventurers and finds the object that had belonged to the man who poisoned himself in the forest. He becomes very interested in what that man had been doing, and later he returns to Yuji. After Yuji has eaten, Lily tells him that Gale and the rest of the adventurers are celebrating because they all believe Yuji is a hero who saved them with his attack. Lily also thanks him deeply for rescuing them, pointing out that he had only recently arrived in the city and yet still chose to protect all of them. She asks him why he decided to help, but Yuji says nothing at all, and in the end, she quietly leaves. Right then, Yuji has a small flashback from his previous life, and although the story does not explain much, we can see that he used to be an office worker. Sometime later, Lily comes back because she forgot to bring him some sheets, but when she arrives, she realizes he has already gone. Then we see Yuji with Wolf and the rest of the slimes because he decided to slip away in the middle of the night without drawing attention to himself. The next day, Aegis thinks about how Yuji left without even saying goodbye to everyone. He also explains that the dead man they found had been carrying a kind of lamp and that a crystal had been discovered a little farther away from him. At the same time, we learn that Yuji left one of his slimes behind so it could secretly listen to everything those people were discussing. Then the story returns to Yuji, who has now arrived in another city of the kingdom. In a new scene, a group of men are shown talking among themselves because they are targeting one particular adventurer. We are not told who it is yet, but they mention that very few people truly understand just how dangerous that person is. Back with Yuji, he and his companions enter the city and realize they have not stopped to eat or rest for quite a while. Not to mention that they are drawing plenty of attention because Yuji is traveling with dozens of slimes, so they stop at a meat stand and happily begin eating. Just then, the bells of the church begin to ring, and Yuji remembers something Aegis had mentioned before. Soon after, he heads to the local adventurers guild, and at first the receptionist seems unsure about accepting him, because physically Yuji does not look especially strong, but once she checks his adventurer card and sees that he has the tracking ability, she agrees without a problem. Right after that, Yuji walks over to the guild's mission board, but a man named Lotes asks him whether he is looking for a party, and then another girl named Tina appears along with a lancer named Lisa, and as they look him over, they ask him whether he at least knows. They look Yuji over and ask if he can actually do anything at all, because Lotes does not want the protagonist to become dead weight for the team. But when Yuji sees them starting to argue among themselves, it reminds him of his past life and the atmosphere inside his old workplace, and after they talk for a while, they finally decide to let him join their group. As they head toward the forest, we are told that a few hours earlier they had accepted a mission to investigate an earth dragon, and the goal is only to gather information and avoid fighting it directly. At the same time, Yuji quietly asks Wolf whether he has found any trace of the dragon yet, because he had secretly sent his wolf companion ahead without the rest of the group knowing. Right then, several wolf-shaped monsters appear in front of Wolf, and Yuji notices it immediately, so he tells the group that there are monsters 2 kilometers away. At first, they do not believe him, because that distance sounds far too great for anyone to track so precisely, but Lotes seems willing to trust him and says they will see whether it is true or not, and then they all dash toward the spot. When they arrive, they find themselves surrounded by monsters. The beasts rush in to attack at once, but Lotes pulls out his daggers and defeats them with surprising ease. Yuji quietly thinks that Lotes is better than he first assumed, and Lotes also tells Yuji that he has changed his opinion of him. The others then boast that they could have defeated those monsters easily too, but Yuji says he simply wanted to see how strong his new group really was. Some hours later, the party sets up camp, and the girls notice that Yuji gets along unusually well with his slime. They also ask how he is able to detect enemies from such a long distance because they assume he must have been trained by some extraordinary expert. Yuji simply replies that one day he realized he could do it, and that is all, which leaves them staring at him in amazement. Lotes then says they will take turns keeping watch so everyone can rest properly. After that, we are shown a memory from the day Yuji was reincarnated into this world, when he suddenly appeared in the middle of a forest and mentions that just before that, he had been working overtime at the office. It was then that he met Sura, after touching it, and because he possessed the monster tamer skill, he made it his familiar. Sura then guided him to a small treehouse filled with countless books, and that was where Yuji found a grimoire of divine destruction. In that moment, a screen appeared in front of him and informed him that he had acquired magic from different elements, making him realize that the system of this world was incredibly simple, because merely reading things allowed him to gain their abilities. It was also there that dozens of slimes appeared, and Yuji ended up taming all of them. The slimes immediately started reading reading all the books in the place, and Yuji began learning dozens of skills at that very instant, because whatever they learned or did, he would gain as well. Then the story returns to the present, where Wolf informs Yuji that Lotes has abandoned his watch duty, and we soon see Lotes running at full speed while the girls chase after him in deep concern. Suddenly, he comes to a stop after sensing the presence of one of Yuji's companions, so he throws a knife, but that companion barely manages to use a skill that makes him undetectable, escaping by the narrowest margin. Lotes keeps running, dodging one obstacle after another, until he reaches the man we heard about earlier, and this is when we learn his name is Gelios. Lotes tells him that he brought along 2 girls and Yuji, but left Yuji back at the camp while the girls followed him. At that moment, Lisa and Tina realize why Lotes never seemed to keep a stable team, because on the rare occasions he had one, the members always ended up disappearing under mysterious circumstances. The girls nervously think they should head back to camp, but by accident they activate a trap, and the bandits discover where they are, forcing them to prepare for battle. Even so, before anything can happen, they notice a very intimidating creature, and Gelios tells his men they had better step aside. In the next second, we see that it is actually Yuji's slimes stacked up in the shape of a tower, and Yuji decides this is the perfect moment to strike using a new skill he learned called Permafrost. The slimes line themselves up, and once he transfers the attack through them, they freeze the house where the bandits are hiding. Yuji arrives right after that, and one of the slimes spits directly at Gelios, freezing him completely. The girls then explain that he is actually a notorious bandit who has been wanted throughout the area for a long time, to the point that there is even a reward offered for him. In that moment, the girls realize how ridiculous Yuji's power really is, and think they should have asked for his help much earlier. But Yuji remembers that in his previous life, whenever he finished work quickly, people only piled even more work onto him, and because of that, he prefers not to make others depend on him too much. After exchanging a few more words, Yuji thinks it might be a good idea to use his slimes so he can rest without worry. So he sends Azur into the sky, and Azur finds the perfect place for them to rest. They head there at once, and the girls are left speechless at how easy Yuji makes everything look, because he literally sets up a whole camp in only a few minutes. Several hours later, while keeping watch, Yuji remembers something Gelios said, mentioning that when the moon turns blue, a calamity will strike the land, and Yuji starts wondering whether that has anything to do with what happened in Pastan. Still, he cannot stop asking himself what kind of calamity the old man was talking about. In a parallel scene, we see another man staring up at the moon.